Hi, I'm Melinda with the Wausau Police Department.
And I'm Sarah Bedish, also with the Wausau Police Department.
And we are going to tell you a story of a call that we went to a few years back, something that we both talk about still to this day.
Yep, and we both remember details, a lot of the details.
Yeah, and we're going to tell you our story. This is things you don't normally hear about being a police officer, and this is behind the call.
So I was on duty at that time. Again, this was several years ago. I was on duty. I was a patrol officer. I worked nights, 6P to 6A, and it was in late December, around Christmas time. And I remember it was dark out. It wasn't late into my shift, but I remember it was dark out and it was cold. I was in my squad car. I couldn't tell you where I was in this city, but I was somewhere on the east side. That's the side I worked on. And I received a call from dispatch that I needed to respond to an address on the east side regarding a male that had cut himself.
I was the on-duty patrol lieutenant at that time, so I was here at the police department. I remember responding from the police department. And generally, our patrol lieutenants will respond to more serious calls. So I left the office and showed up shortly after Sarah and another patrol officer at that time.
I remember the call came out that he had cut his throat. I responded emergent. I remember I didn't have to drive very far. I wasn't that far away. And I remember thinking on my way there, this is very similar to a lot of calls that we get where people inflict self-harm. And I remember thinking like, oh, he cut his throat. It can't be that bad. He probably just some superficial cuts. And I actually was envisioning in my mind like scratches on his throat. And at that time, I knew that the caller, the female that was at the house, had been locked outside. I got out of the car, and as I actually ran through the front yard, I remember running through the yard and like thinking about like putting my gloves on. Like, well, if he has injuries, I should probably put some gloves on. And as I approached the house, sure enough, the female she was outside and she was in her bathrobe. And I remember trying to calm her down, and then the door opened. When the door opened, there was a male standing there, and my first thought was, this looks like something out of Halloween. He had, in fact, cut his throat from ear to ear, and he was still standing. The knife was still in his right hand, and he had severed his throat and his trachea, and his trachea was open. And my first thought was, okay, I need to stop this bleeding. And without thinking twice, I think I verbalized for him to put the knife down, but I don't know. And I grabbed onto his neck with my hand, and I was applying pressure, trying to keep that wound closed. I still remember the feeling of his trachea on my hand because it was completely severed. But I remember, and I was directing him backwards into the house, trying to keep pressure on his neck. The female was frantic. There was a dog running around. There was a little boy. I remember him, he was somewhere to my right, but there was a little boy. But the male, so my attention is on the male, trying to fix him, save him. And so I'm holding onto his neck, and he says something to the effect of, I want to die. I want to die. But it came out very raspy because he had obviously severed his neck. And I remember telling him, nope, not today. That's not what's gonna go on. That's not what we're doing today. Nope, not today. Then he told me that he couldn't breathe. He was getting obviously very lethargic because so much blood was lost. So I ended up getting him turned around, and I had him like leaning against me, against my chest. So I was holding him like this, trying to keep keep his neck together. And that's when I remember Officer Jordan standing in front of me. And then I remember we had to request the Med 33 or emergent. So I have no idea when you arrived, to be honest with you.
I was actually walked in with Officer Jordan. We arrived together. We both came in and saw Sarah holding, pressure on this man's throat. And we, between Officer Jordan and I, assisted him to lay him down on his back, and then Sarah maintained pressure. And really that was what we could do. I was already covered in blood. Sarah was head to toe almost covered in blood already. And that's one of the things that I still remember is like the smell of the blood.
Yep.
And all of the sounds around us. But I remember a child crying, I remember a dog barking, and just like the surrounding atmosphere was just so chaotic, it felt like
chaos, like utter, but so weirdly silent at the same time, because you're so focused on like saving him. And I remember applying pressure, holding him down, and the paramedics sliding safety glasses on my face. So we were there for a long time working, because they couldn't transport him until he was stable.
Right.
We finally got him stable, and we went to the hospital. I followed in my squad. I followed the ambulance up there. For some reason, I had to walk through the emergency waiting room, not thinking anything of it. I walked through there. I remember I was taking my gloves off, and there were people sitting in there, and they were like watched me walk by. Like they had this look of like horror and fear on their faces. Didn't think anything of it until later when I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was covered in blood. I had blood all over my face. It was in my hair. It was everywhere. So he goes in, obviously, right into surgery and like life-saving measures. And I remember standing at the nurses' station, and one of the nurses came over and she gave me like a little basin, a little plastic basin, my pins, my badge, anything that could be rinsed off. I put in this basin and we doused it with saline or like a cleaner, wiped my face, and I went out into the sally port, took my duty belt off, and I laid it in the sally port and literally hosed off my belt and wiped every nook and cranny of my belt, and I was hosing off my boots and trying to like clean my uniform up. And then it kind of sunk in. I was like, I just touched somebody's trachea, and he's still alive. Like he's still alive. So then I was like, okay, like that's what you're supposed to do. Like we saved a life. And then I left and I changed my uniform. Like we finished the call. I changed my uniform and
we had other calls at night.
went on with the night, like because it was earlier in the night.
So when Sarah left with the med, I stayed back on scene with Officer Jordan, and Officer Nick Stetzer was there as well.
Yeah.
He came, and we, while the med was still there, while they were still working on the gentleman, I remember the little boy that she had mentioned was still in the room. And I, being a parent, being just like, I can't, like this is too much. We shouldn't be seeing this right now, let alone this little guy. So I remember getting the girl, the female who had called, and saying like, hey, we need to get him, let's get him into the bedroom. We took him in, there was another baby that was sleeping. Thankfully, we got the dog out of the room. And I remember just kind of being in this bedroom for a while with them, just trying to calm them both down. Eventually, the scene was cleared from the med, and we went back out and we did some like family notification and that kind of stuff, getting other family members there for her and the kids. And I remember at one point in time before I left, and this is what sticks with me, is this little guy looks at me and he's like, thanks for helping my dad. Thank you so much for helping that. And I'm like, this little boy should not
be thanking me right now. That is what I still take from that.
So then,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. So then, we clear and the part that sticks with me to this day, we had obviously kept track, or we're keeping track of his status, the gentleman's status, if he was gonna live or die. And I remember he was still alive the next day, and he was still alive the next day, and he was still alive the next day. And then 4 days later, so 4 days had passed, we found out that he had passed away. And I remember I was sitting in my squad car in the PD parking lot. It was dark, it was night shift. I was sitting in the squad car, and I called my dad. Because my dad was a trooper, so he's seen it all. But I called my dad, and I was crying in my squad car. A lot of people don't know this, but we cry a lot in our squad cars. And
we cry together. We don't let other people see that.
No.
That's why this is hard.
Yeah. But I was sitting in my car, in my squad car, in uniform, crying on the phone with my dad. I was so mad that he had died. I was so mad. And I don't know who I was mad at. I don't know if I was mad at him or if I was mad at the universe, but I was so mad that he had died, because I thought in our minds, in all police officers' minds, we are supposed to save the day. Mm-hmm. We are supposed to save the day. And that's what you go into your shift thinking, I am unstoppable, I'm gonna fix everything. We are who people call to save the day. And I had left that scene thinking, he's alive, he's gonna live. And then he died. And I felt what did we do wrong? And then because I knew about the little boy, and I remember thinking but we didn't save him. And I was so mad. But I remember being on the phone with my dad and telling him this. And I remember him being in his dad voice going, "Oh, Sarah, you know you can't save everybody, right?" I know. And then he goes, "So, let's talk about the Packers." Because he just wanted to take my mind. He knew, but what are you supposed to say? But I think I was just mad that we didn't save the day. And I think it was this rude awakening that we can't fix everything, even though we try. So, but then, being the big softies that we are, I remember Nick and I talking about the little boy and the little girl. And because this was so close to the holidays, that we're we want to go buy presents. we want to go buy presents for the kids, go buy them Christmas presents. And so we went into the lieutenant's office, and we asked Mel if it was okay if we went and bought Christmas presents.
And I pull out from underneath my desk and put a bag on the desk, and I said, yeah, because I already got some today.
Yep.
This was what I had to do during the day just to make myself feel better, I went shopping. I went and got some gifts, and I said, you guys go get yours, and we will go get them together.
Yep.
And that, I think, helped all of us.
Yeah.
Because I think you, me, and Officer Stutzer, Nick Stutzer, just being there and seeing the kids especially, that's how we had to cope with it, was it made us feel better to know that hopefully maybe, a few little things that they were able to open would make their holiday somewhat more normal than it probably would have been that year.
I've told this to other people, that there are things in this world that I would never want family and friends to ever see, and we shouldn't be seeing them. But there are things in this world that I don't want people to see, and that's why we are here. We are supposed to see that. We guard that line and protect people from that. And it bothered us that a child and a female were had to see something that they should never have to see. Like, that's our job. We'll deal with the ugly and the scary so that you don't have to. And that little boy had to see that. We don't like when other people see the bad.
No, we can take that on. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's our burden to carry.
Yeah.
So.
And we will continue to do so.
Yeah, somehow. I don't think of that call often, but when I do, it's, yeah.
All the details are still there.
Yep, I can smell the scene.
Yeah, hear it, smell it.
Knowing that other officers, especially from that case, were affected in the same way was very helpful. Knowing that you're not alone in your feelings and emotions and anger and confusion, so.
So my advice to anybody who is thinking about a career in law enforcement is it is 100% the most rewarding thing you will ever do.
Yeah.
Yes, there are days like this where you will never forget.
Nope.
But those are thankfully the far and few between ones. I think generally we are there and we are able to help people. And it, for the most part, comes out with good endings.
Yeah.
Even the bad ones, you know, I think back to this one and I know those kids are doing well, which is nice. To know that, you know, they're still doing well, which is a huge thing after having been through that. But it's a rewarding career that sometimes weighs on you, you know, but we have each other and we have resources that there's nothing that I could imagine wanting to do anything else myself, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah. Having good coping mechanisms and having good structure, family structure, family support, outside friendships I think are really important to give yourself a break from law enforcement or like cop life. I think that's very helpful, but I think it's very important to talk about it. To talk about the hard days and the bad days and the good days too. I think it's very important to talk about it and embrace it and know that we are human and we get happy and excited and cry and just like anybody else. And I think we find comfort knowing other officers are the same. I think it's also very important to have hobbies and likes outside of law enforcement, and to
all the things that keep us normal.
Yes, normal people stuff. I don't know what that is. My happiness revolves around like my little boy. Like that is my happy place, and I keep him separate from work because he is my happy. That's what keeps me sane in this world. So somehow keeps me sane in this world.
No, I agree. You know, every single one of us here, every officer has a family. We're all normal people.
Yep.
And you think, I mean, that's something that you never want your family to ever see.
Nope.
And that's again why we continue to do our job. Because for me, you know, I'll take that burden on any day to take that away from any other family that would ever have to see that.
Every day. And I think maybe sometimes why we don't talk to people about our stories, because we don't want them to know. We don't want to share that nightmare with somebody else.
Thank you for watching this video. It was hard for us to share, so we hope that maybe this would be a resource for somebody who is struggling with mental health. Just know that there are options. We never want, you know, like we said, another family to deal with this again. So please reach out if you're struggling with mental health. Dial 911 and we'll get you the resources that you need.
Also, unfortunately in these circumstances, there are family members that are left with their own struggles. In this case, we do have resources for victims of crime. Granted, this wasn't a crime. However, they're a victim. The child would have been a victim. The female would have been a victim. And there are resources here at the police department for victims. You would contact me, and I can help get you into touch with what you would need for support.
you.